Welcome to English Flowcast, your space to slow down, learn English through stories, and find peace in words that touch your heart. Today's story is called The Courage to Begin Again. It's about a man named Daniel who lost everything he thought he needed and discovered something much deeper: the quiet strength to start again. So take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let the story unfold slowly. The office lights were bright, but Daniel's eyes were tired. He sat at his desk staring at his computer screen. The numbers didn't make sense anymore. The project he had worked on for 6 months failed. His company had just announced big losses. His team was gone, and his boss called him in. "Daniel, I'm sorry," his boss said softly. "We're closing your department. You've done your best, but it's over." Daniel smiled weakly. "Yeah, I understand." But when he left the building, it felt like his whole world had closed behind him. He had no job, no plan, and deep inside, no energy left to fight. That evening, he walked home through the rain, his reflection following him in every puddle. He whispered, "I gave everything, and it still wasn't enough." Failure doesn't mean you're finished. It means something new wants to begin. But first, you must let go of what's gone. When Daniel reached home, the silence felt heavy. His apartment looked the same, but nothing inside him did. He sat on the couch and turned off the lights. He thought about his past, the long nights, the deadlines, the coffee cups, the friends he stopped meeting, the dreams he had postponed. He whispered, "All for what?" He felt anger first, then sadness, and finally, nothing. He stayed like that for hours, watching the rain slide down the window. The city was still moving, but Daniel had stopped. When everything falls apart, don't rush to rebuild. Sometimes you need silence to understand what truly matters. The next morning, Daniel's phone buzzed. It was a message from his old college friend Alex. "Hey man, I heard the news. You okay?" Daniel typed. "Not really. Feels like my life's over." Alex replied, "Come stay with me for a while, get some air. My place by the lake has space and peace." At first, Daniel wanted to say no, but then he remembered the walls of his apartment and the silence that made his thoughts too loud. So he packed a small bag, and by evening, he was on a train to the lake. As the city disappeared behind the window, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in months: a tiny drop of relief. Sometimes healing begins not in action, but in location. When you change your environment, you give your heart new air to breathe. Alex's cabin was small but warm. Wooden walls, a soft bed, and a view of the water so calm it looked like glass. "Stay as long as you need," Alex said. "No pressure, just rest." Daniel nodded. He sat by the window for hours, watching ripples form and disappear. At first, his mind was full of regret, but slowly, the silence of the lake began to calm him. One evening, he took a walk by the water. He saw an old fisherman sitting alone. The man smiled and said, "You look like someone who lost something." Daniel laughed softly. "Yeah, myself." The fisherman said, "Then maybe it's time to find you again. Doing nothing is not always failure. Sometimes it's preparation. The seed must stay still before it grows." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. So he picked up an old notebook from the cabin's shelf. It was blank. He took a pen and wrote one line. "I don't know what's next, but I want to start again." He looked at the words, and for the first time, they didn't feel impossible. He smiled weakly and added another line. "Maybe starting small is enough." He closed the notebook and fell asleep. Not perfectly, but peacefully. The first step is never strong. It's shaky, uncertain, quiet. But it's still a beginning. And that's what courage looks like. The next morning, Daniel woke up before sunrise. The world was quiet, too quiet. For a moment, he thought, "Why am I even here?" Then he saw it, a line of golden light on the lake. The sun was rising, slowly, gently, painting the water with fire. He stepped outside. The air was cold, but the beauty of the moment felt warm. He whispered to himself, "Maybe today can be different." He didn't have a plan, but he decided to take a walk, not to go anywhere, just to move. When your mind feels heavy, move your body. Walk, breathe, stretch. Sometimes motion is the medicine your thoughts need. By the lake, he met the same old fisherman again. The man was sitting quietly, fixing his net. "Morning," Daniel said. "Morning," the fisherman replied with a grin. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" Daniel nodded. "I guess so. I'm just trying to figure out what to do next." The old man smiled. "You don't have to figure everything out. Just catch one fish at a time." Daniel laughed softly. That sounds simple, the fisherman said. It is, but simple isn't easy. You don't need a big plan to rebuild your life. Just one focus, one habit, one step done every day can change everything. That evening, Daniel opened his notebook again. He wrote a simple plan. Morning, walk by the lake. Afternoon, read for 1 hour. Night, write 1 page about my thoughts. No goals, no deadlines, just rhythm. For the next few days, he followed it. Every walk made him breathe deeper. Every page he wrote made him think clearer. Every sunset reminded him that endings could be beautiful too. He still felt lost, but less broken. One rainy afternoon, Daniel noticed an old bookshelf in the cabin. Most of the books were about fishing and weather, but one small book caught his eye. Its title read, The Art of Starting Over. He smiled. That sounds like me. He opened it and read a short paragraph. A new beginning doesn't come when life gets easier. It comes when you get braver. He closed the book and whispered, braver. That word stayed in his mind all evening. Waiting doesn't make life easier. Action does. Courage means trying again, even when you still feel afraid. That night, a storm rolled across the lake. Rain hit the windows hard. Wind howled through the trees. Daniel sat near the fireplace, watching lightning flash across the sky. For a moment, he felt that old fear return. The fear of losing, the fear of failing again. He whispered, what if I try again and it doesn't work? Then he looked at the fire. It flickered, but it never went out. He smiled and said softly, then I'll light it again. Failure doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. And humans are born to rise again and again. The next morning, Daniel's phone buzzed. It was from his old colleague, Maya. Hey Daniel, I heard what happened. I just started a small marketing project from home. I could use your help for a few weeks if you're interested. Daniel's heart raced. He hadn't worked in months. His hands felt shaky. He almost said no. Then he remembered his notebook. Maybe starting small is enough. He replied, yes, I'd love to help. After sending the message, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. You'll never feel completely ready to start again. Say yes anyway. Growth begins with a small, okay, let's try. A few days later, Daniel set up his laptop on the cabin table. Maya sent him the project details. It was small, just helping with a few ads and designs, but it gave him purpose. He worked slowly, carefully. He didn't push too hard. He just tried to do one thing well each day. Every evening he wrote in his notebook, worked for 2 hours, learned something new. Didn't give up today. Little by little, his confidence returned, not as loud pride, but as quiet faith. You don't think your way into confidence. You act your way into it. Every small action builds a stronger voice inside you. A few weeks later, Daniel woke up early again. The storm was gone. The lake was shining under the morning sun. He stepped outside and took a deep breath. The air was cool, clean, alive. He whispered, "It's been a long time since I felt this good." He thought about his old life, the noise, the stress, the endless deadlines. He didn't want that life anymore. He wanted a life built on peace, not pressure. He smiled and wrote in his notebook, Day 30. I'm not the man who failed. I'm the man who began again. Days passed into weeks. Daniel worked on the small project with Maya. Every morning he made coffee, opened his laptop, and watched the sunlight dance across the desk. There were no deadlines this time. No noise. No competition. Only focus and peace. One afternoon, Maya called him. "Daniel," she said, "this project looks amazing, thank you." He smiled. "It feels good to be useful again." Maya laughed. "You never stopped being useful. You just needed a break." After the call, Daniel sat quietly for a while. He looked at his hands, the same hands that had once felt tired and empty. Now, they were creating again. Not because someone told him to, but because he wanted to. Even after failure, you still have value. The world may forget your worth, but that doesn't mean it's gone. It's just waiting for you to believe in it again. One Saturday, Daniel walked into the small town nearby. There was a weekend market. Fruit stalls, handmade crafts, smiling faces. He stopped at a stand where a young woman was selling painted stones. Each stone had a word written on it. Hope, love, patience, begin. He picked one that said, begin. The woman smiled. "That one's my favorite," she said. "I made it after losing my job. It reminded me to start again." Daniel smiled back. "Then it's perfect for me." He bought it and put it in his pocket. All day he felt its smooth surface between his fingers. A small reminder that courage doesn't have to be big. Sometimes it fits in your hand. Mm. Find something that reminds you of your strength. A word, a photo, a memory. Hold it when you feel weak. It will help you stand again. One evening, Daniel received an email from his old boss. Daniel, I just wanted to say, I know things ended badly, but your effort and honesty never went unnoticed. I hope you're doing well. Daniel read it twice. For a moment, old pain returned. Memories of long nights and lost dreams. But instead of anger, he felt peace. He whispered, I forgive you, and I forgive me. Then he smiled and replied simply, thank you. I'm doing better. I wish you all the best too. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to prove anything. Letting go felt lighter. Forgiveness is not about others. It's about yourself. You can't begin again while still carrying yesterday's pain. Weeks later, Maya called again. Daniel, the client loved your designs. They're asking if you'd like to work on another project. Daniel smiled. Yes, of course. Then he thought for a moment and added, but Maya, I've also been thinking, what if we start something small, our own creative studio? Something focused on honest, meaningful work? There was silence on the line. Then Maya laughed. You mean begin again, but on your own terms? Daniel laughed too. Exactly. They agreed to meet the next week to plan. Don't chase what broke you. Build what heals you. Start something that feels right, even if it's small. Daniel met Maya in a small cafe by the lake. They spread notebooks and laptops across the table. And their goal wasn't big, just to create a small design studio that helped small businesses and artists tell their stories. They named it Second Light. Maya said, it means the light that comes after darkness. Daniel smiled. I like that. They shook hands, and just like that, a new chapter began. Their first client was a local baker named Rosa. Her small bakery needed a logo and posters. Daniel visited her shop. The smell of bread filled the air. Rosa said, I've been afraid to try advertising again. I failed once before. Daniel smiled softly. I know how that feels. But if you're willing to begin again, I'll help you tell your story. When the project was done, Rosa stood outside her bakery looking at her new sign. Tears filled her eyes. It's perfect, she said. You helped me believe again. Daniel smiled. So did you. When you rise after failure, you give permission for others to do the same. Your courage becomes a bridge. That evening, Daniel opened his old notebook again. He flipped through its pages. Day 1, I don't know what's next. Day 7, took a walk. Day 30, worked again. Day 60, forgave myself. He added a new line. Day 100, started something new. Beginning again, not because I failed, but because I've grown. He closed the notebook and smiled. The same man who once feared endings was now falling in love with beginnings. That night, Daniel sat by the window with a cup of tea. The lake reflected the stars, calm, endless. He thought about his journey. The failure, the fear, the silence, the peace. Every part of it had shaped him. He whispered softly, "Thank you, failure. You broke me just enough to make me real." And for the first time, he didn't feel like a man who lost everything. He felt like a man who finally found himself. The storm didn't come to destroy you. It came to clear your path. Sometimes what ends is just making space for what's meant to begin. The second light studio was tiny. Just one desk by a window, 2 laptops, and a wall full of sketches and quotes. One of the quotes, written by Daniel, said, "We don't rebuild by rushing. We rebuild by caring." Business was slow at first, but they loved every project because each one told a human story. Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. He woke up each morning not for deadlines, but for meaning. Don't just build a career that looks good. Build a life that feels good. Success means nothing if peace is missing. One morning, as Daniel was sketching ideas, he heard a knock on the door. It was the old fisherman from the lake. His eyes twinkled as he said, "Heard you're running your own place now." Daniel laughed. "News travels fast around here." The fisherman nodded. "You see, you found your fish." Daniel smiled warmly. "I guess I did." The old man walked around the small studio, touching the designs pinned to the wall. Then he said something Daniel would never forget. "The lake taught you how to be calm, but life teaches you how to shine again. Peace isn't where life stops. It's where strength starts. You rest to rise stronger." Weeks later, Daniel and Maya were invited to hold a small creative workshop at the community center. They taught simple things: how to design posters, how to tell stories through color and emotion. At the end, one young woman stood up and said, "I failed my first business last year. I was too scared to try again until I heard your story. Daniel smiled softly. Then promise me one thing, he said. Start again, even if it's small. The woman nodded, eyes bright with tears. Your pain has a purpose, to remind someone else that they can survive too. You are living proof that second chances exist. That night, as Daniel closed his laptop, he found a handwritten note from Maya on his desk. Daniel, thank you for believing in Second Light. You've reminded me that work can have soul. You taught me that beginnings aren't about age or luck. They're about courage. Daniel smiled, folded the note, and placed it next to the small stone he bought from the market. The one that said, begin. He whispered, still beginning. Months later, Daniel visited the lake again, the same place where his healing began. The water was calm, the air fresh with the scent of rain. He sat on the same wooden bench, closed his eyes, and breathed deeply. This time, there was no fear in him, only gratitude. He whispered, thank you for bringing me back to life. A child ran past him, laughing. Her mother smiled and said, sorry. Daniel shook his head. No, it's fine. It's a beautiful sound. And it was a sound of life continuing, of beginnings happening everywhere. Even when you stop, life keeps growing around you. And someday, you'll grow with it again. As Daniel got up to leave, rain began to fall light, gentle rain. He pulled out his old notebook, the same one from his dark days. The pages were full now words, lessons, drawings, and dreams. He flipped to the first page. I don't know what's next, but I want to start again. He smiled and added a new line at the end. I started again, and it was worth it. He closed the notebook, held it close to his chest, and let the rain fall freely. Because sometimes rain doesn't mean sadness. It means renewal. A few months later, Daniel was invited to give a small talk at a local college. He stood in front of a room full of young faces. He looked nervous for a moment, then took a deep breath and said, I failed once. I lost everything I thought made me who I was. But that loss gave me a gift, the courage to begin again. If you ever fall, don't stay down. Rest, learn, breathe, and when you're ready, take that first step, even if it's small. The students clapped softly. Some smiled, some wiped away quiet tears. Someone out there needs your story to start theirs. Don't hide your scars. They are the map that shows others the way home. After the talk, Daniel walked home through the town. The sky was glowing with orange and gold. The air smelled of coffee and rain. He thought about everything: the failure, the fear, the fisherman, the studio, the peace. And he realized something simple yet powerful. Life doesn't give you one beginning. It gives you as many as you have courage for. He smiled, not a loud, excited smile, but a soft, quiet one. The kind of the smile that comes when your heart finally forgives the past and welcomes the future. He whispered, "I'm not afraid to start again, because I know how." Daniel's story is not about failure. It's about rediscovery. He learned that courage isn't something you find once. It's something you practice every time life asks you to begin again. So wherever you are right now, remember this: you are not too late. You are not too broken. You are simply between endings and beginnings. And if you can take one small step, just one, you've already begun. Final lesson: every end has a door hidden inside it. Don't fear the end. It's just the universe whispering, "Start again, my friend."